everyone, on a November 17th, 2010. This is ExpandMusic with Noel Webb. I am Noel Webb, and that was, I guess I begin every show with a tune called Take the Journey. I'm playing the violin on that tune. I just like the tune, so, I tell you, it makes me happy, makes me energetic. And tonight we have an interview by Barry Jackson of Harvey Mason. The dude has played drums on so many wonderful tunes that we've enjoyed over the years. He was the drummer and actually I think the writer of Watermelon Man, Herbie Hancock. He's played with Grover Washington. He's now with Foreplay. Who someone plays with, I guess, really mostly defines who they are. I like to hear the interview of when I interview them or Barry interviews them, to hear what sort of makes them tick and how they got where they went and how they got where they went. How they got where they got to, those are the intimate questions you get in an interview, which is really fun to be the interviewer. But George Benson, the Seal, Herbie Hancock, Duke Ellington, Bob James, so obviously he's a man to contend with. He's up for a nomination for as a drummer, and with Foreplay as well as also a nomination for an Academy Award. So. An award for the Academy. And coming right up, I think it's just nominations are happening right now. You can't be here. You'll be voting soon coming up here. So it's great. Harvey Mason is wonderful to listen to play with. I'd love to play with the dude myself. And I'm going to just begin the interview with Barry right now. Barry and Harvey Mason, you go for it. Here you go.
I'm about to have a nice little conversation with percussionist, producer, composer Harvey Mason, who first showed his penchant for greatness, distinctive technique, and innate sensibility in the late 60s performing with Duke Ellington and Errol Garner. His recording career began in the early years of the Blue Note jazz crossover explosion and continued with groundbreaking performances and compositions with Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters, Donald Byrd, Bobby Humphrey, and Gary Bartz. His inspired drumming can be heard on Seal's 1995 Grammy-winning record of the year, and he has earned 7 Grammy nominations, including 1 for Best Contemporary Jazz Performance for the latest of 6 solo endeavors. And a gifted composer, he's scored Only the Strong, Deadly Takeover, and contributed to the score of The Color Purple. You can hear him, Mr. Mason, on the recordings of such artists as the Brecker Brothers, the Mazzell Brothers, and he's been with the supergroup Foreplay for nearly 2 decades. Harvey Mason, good morning.
Hi, Barry. How are you doing? It's great to be here.
Oh, doing just fine. Can you give me give me a brief biography of how you got started in the music business, and we kind of move from there?
Well, I've been playing drums all my life. I started as a kid banging on pots and pans, and realized that my mother realized that I had some talent there, and she sort of guided me in the direction of playing, and I started taking lessons when I was in 3rd grade and never quit. I was just very, very good and ahead of the curve, and was always playing in the top orchestras and thick bands in that school, and that became my thing, but I didn't equate that to being a professional musician. It was something that I did very good. Did very well. I took a lot of pride in it, and it got me through in my early years. And then when I graduated from high school, I thought about being a lawyer, but then I read an article in a magazine about studio musicians, and I said, that sounds like what I want to do, So I went to Berkeley for a year and then left on full scholarship to go to New England Conservatory and graduated, and came out to L.A. to seek my fortune in the studios, and was very fortunate to happen to get in. And that was the beginning of my recording career. It was, to me, amazing. I look back at all the artists I've recorded with. It's pretty amazing. And diverse artists from one genre to another. It's just crazy.
Yeah, well, I know I was initially I found out who Harvey Mason was on that on Chameleon, and that was probably just that drum track was probably here in Kansas City one of the most copied drum tracks among the local bands. What was it like? From what you could understand, how was the concept for the album Headhunters explained to you?
Well, before Headhunters, I've been recording. I've done a number of very, very successful records. I was at the beginning of the fusion era, as I was a part of the Blue Note scene with Donald Byrd and all that whole deal. So we were making gold records there, and very, very popular records. And I'd known Herbie for a long time, met Herbie, followed him with Miles, and then when he had his own band, one of my good friends played drums with him and was always recommending me to him. Herbie broke up his Mwadishi band and wanted to create a band that was a little more contemporary, and he called me at the urging of Billy Hart, and we played together, and that was it. So we started making music together, started writing and creating music together specifically for the record, which became known as the Headhunters. Unfortunately, I didn't go on the road afterwards because I was, deeply involved in studio work, and I just wanted to make records with people. That's all I wanted to do. So we made that record, and that's how it came about. But we put a lot of time in. Up until that point, I don't think I put that much time into working with anybody before we went in the studio. But it was a work of love and art, because Herbie is an amazing artist, and I had a great time working with him, and it was definitely a career changer as well. Even up until that point, I'd played on a lot of major records, but this was groundbreaking in the jazz area.
Tell me, what would you say is what was different about that as opposed? What was different about working with the Mizell brothers? That was Larry and Fonz Mizell, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Mizell brothers. Well, their stuff was a little looser in some respects. It was fun. It was structured. It was like a factory. We'd go in there and we'd work, and we didn't even know who the artists we were playing for half the time, because the artists were in very rarely. We were cutting tracks. So we were just cutting tracks, and they went to different artists. It was like a factory. With Herbie, we knew who the artist was, and we were with the artist creating the music, and it was just a lot more intimate. It was a lot more. I was a lot more involved. Like I arranged one song. I was a co-writer on Chameleon, and I was just a lot more involved. It was more of a group situation. We all got together, and there was a lot of give and take. So it was very different than the Mizell brothers. Even though we were creating music, it was fun. It wasn't restricted, but it was different than creating the music with Herbie.
Now you've done some producing. I understand you did some producing with the Seawind Horns.
Sorry? I produced Seawind, yeah. I produced their first records and brought the Seawind Horns to Quincy and other people, Jerry Hay, and I produced quite a few acts. Esther Phillips and Dionne Warwick, I can't even think of the other people, Shirley Brown, and on and on. I can't even think of all the people I produced, but Lee Ritenour. So I've been producing as well, because I produced all of my records. I have 9 solo records, my credit as well, so I have a lot of experience producing records. So I love producing as well. I think drummers are in a great position to produce, because they have to, if they're good drummers, they're good musicians, they have to listen to everything that's going on. We kind of get used to hearing everything and hearing everything together. So I think drummers make good producers. Take, for instance, Maurice White, the drummer of Earth, Wind & Fire. He's a wonderful producer. So I think drummers end up being great producers. Steve Jordan, drummer, he produces John Mayer, to name a few. So drummers are generally very, very good producers.
Okay, so who did you listen to? Who was pretty much your inspiration? Who influenced you to play, and who influenced you as far as your style of playing?
As far as my style, I don't know. I liked a number of people in the beginning. I liked Roy Haynes. I liked a not well-known drummer named Art Taylor. He was one of my favorites, and Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, and later I began to get into Elvin. But then when Tony Williams came on the scene, he dominated. I listened to him a lot. But I think my style is a combination of all the music I play. I played in drum corps, I played in orchestras, I played in R&B bands, and I played in jazz bands. So my style was just an amalgamation of all those different elements, and that's how I ended up with the style. Trying to be clean, stuff to be clean and technically right, and but at the same time being loose. So I listened to a lot of different drummers. I didn't have any one guy. And Art Taylor was a guy that really impressed me, because he was on a lot of the jazz records, and he didn't play anything outstanding. I mean, outstanding from the standpoint, he didn't stick out. He just played great grooves and great time, and he worked all the time. So I realized very early the importance of being able to play with people and staying home and keeping the time together and making it work. And just, being the guy that just keeps it all together. So I learned a lot from listening to him and seeing him on a lot of records. And he's not like a household name, but he made a lot of records, and he really impressed me. So those are drummers I listened to pretty early on in my career.
Who would you say coming up behind you now sounds really good? It's caught your ear.
There's a guy named Little John that I like. There's another guy named Dave. He was a new addition. Chris Dave. I like him. He's a young guy. There are a lot of really good young drummers that come out of the church and are playing great. So it's hard to name just a couple, but there are a lot of great drummers now that are coming in the scene. So it's interesting. A lot of very, very good drummers. And because they've had DVDs to learn from, and they've had a lot of clinics and lessons from drummers. So the technical bar has been raised a lot, and so there are a lot of great drummers. We'll see who comes out of the pack, but there are a lot of really cool drummers, as there are other musicians as well.
Okay, well, tell me about your association with Bob James as it relates to the group Foreplay. How did you all get started? And you might tell my listeners, for those who are really just discovering Foreplay, how did you all get started, and how long have you been working with it?
Well, I, at the time, was making lots and lots of big hit records, and CTI had a wonderful label, and they were making records, and they wanted to move some more records, so they called me into New York to work, and I think the first project I worked on with them was a hit. It was Grover Washington's Mr. Magic, and on that project I met Bob and all the guys from CTI. And Bob and I became friends because I was a golfer and he was a golfer, and we just kind of hit it off right away. As a matter of fact, a lot of the other musicians in the studio were pretty chilly to me because they didn't want this outsider coming in from L.A., this kind of hot shot that they were paying this money to come in there. So they were very chilly to me. But Bob was very nice, very cool. We became friends immediately, and I got to the point where I was coming to New York almost every other month or every month to do a project, and we just became friends. And after time and making so many records with Bob, he wanted to come out to L.A. experience making a record there, and he'd never done that. So he called me to put the band together up in L.A., and I put together two bands, and we started working on his record. That record was called Grand Piano Canyon. And the group that he really liked was Lee Ritenour, myself, and Nathan East. And while we were working, and that's the group we ended up working with most. We tried the other groups, but then this is the group he stuck with. And while we were making the record, he said, "Guys, would you guys ever consider being in a band?" And everybody said yes. And at the time, Bob was working at an A&R, the VP of A&R Jazz at Warner. So he went back to Mo Austin and told Mo Austin he wanted to put a band together and told him who the personnel were. And Mo Austin immediately said yes, and we had a deal within a week. Mo came to the studio, and we finished Bob's record. We started recording our record. And that's how it happened. The first record was platinum. We brought in El DeBarge, and the first record was platinum. That's 20 years ago, now approaching 20 years. So my relationship with Bob goes back 30 years, and I introduced him to Lee and to Nathan because he didn't know them. So the three of us are still in the band, Bob, myself, and Nate. And we've had the guitar changes a couple. Lee left after a few years. Larry has been in the band was in the band for 13 years. Now he's left, and now Chuck Loeb is the newest member of the band. And he's brought some great new energy to the band. I think it's displayed in the new CD, which I think is really wonderful. I'm as excited about this CD as I was with the very first CD. It has everything in it. It's so good and so foreplay, and it's so forward. It's not stuck in that smooth jazz vein, which we, by the way, I think, we led that whole field. We jumped up in front of that. Now we're trying to move to different areas now. So it's really been fun, and my relationship with Bob is as strong as ever. We're great friends, and so we're in our third decade of playing together.
Well,
and hopefully it will continue. And when we started Foreplay, we said we did not want to make one record and just be a flash in the pan. We wanted, from the outset, we wanted to emulate the modern jazz quartet and be around for a long time. And three of us have kept to that and maintained that, and it's been great fun, great friends, and a lot of respect and a lot of great music. And now with Chuck, we're looking to moving forward even more and expanding and growing even more. And I think that that's evident in the record. The sound's going to be a little bit different, but still foreplay. But he's brought new energy to the band because he's a great writer, producer, and player. So we're really hyped up. We're getting a lot of response, early responses to the CD.
Well, I see that you, looking on the CD, I see that you've got a couple of really great vocalists, and I'm sure you've used, many in the past. But how did you all get in touch with Ruben Studdard? I see he's playing.
Well, all the guys in the band are very versatile. Nathan works with lots of different people. I work with different people. Nathan was playing a special in Washington, D.C., and Ruben was on the show. So while they were taking a break, Nathan started playing, just fooling around, started playing TKO or played some other song. And Ruben jumped up there on the stage and just started singing along, and they formed a bond. So when we're in the studio, we've, as a part of most of our records, we tried to do a great cover because that was a formula that ended up getting us a platinum record in the beginning. And we kind of followed that formula from time to time. And we were even though it wasn't like a rule, but we were in the studio making the record, and Nathan said, man, I just played with Ruben Studdard, man, and he sang a Teddy Pendergrass song when we were jamming, and it'd be incredible on our record. And we said, really, do you know him? He said, yes. It so happened that my son had produced him as well. So Nate called him, and he said, man, I'm such a big fan because I'd met him before at my kid's studio, my son's studio. So he said, man, I'm a big fan of you guys. I'd love to do it. What do you want to do? I'll be there tomorrow. Boom, what are you talking about? So we cut this track, Love TKO. We figured out what key was the best for him. We cut the track, and he came in a couple of days later, sang on it. No deal or anything done yet, but it was just about music and art, and that's how the best things are done. He came in, and then we had Harvey, my son, who produces all the big stars, produces vocals. We cut the track, and he did the vocals, so we ended up co-producers on the record. And that's how that came about. I think it's a great collaboration.
Okay,
he's free right now, not on the label, so he's looking to go out with us and do some dates from time to time, and it's going to be fun.
Okay, and see, you've also added Anita Baker. She does a track on there.
Yeah, Anita is amazing. Here again, Nathan has played on every one of her records, and she's been a big foreplay fan. She's followed us around the country. She's just showed up at clubs and hung out, invited us to perform with her on a show last year. And we did a duet, and she said, we've got to record together. So we've been looking for an opportunity, and she pitched a song that she said she'd love to have us play on her record. So while we were doing our record, we cut a track on this song, which was You're My Thrill, for her CD, but we said, we'd really like to have it on our CD as well. She was amenable to that. She came in the studio and sang the song, and it was amazing. Again, she just flew in, no deal set up or anything, and came in and just sang. And she sang it. She reminds me so much of Sarah Vaughan and Miles Davis because I don't think people have heard her sing like this. She's an amazing singer, and she just really stretched out. She didn't sing it in the traditional fashion, and she just probed, and she went here and she went there. And I think real jazz people that are real jazz aficionados and other people that haven't heard her sing like this are going to be blown away. Because there's been talk about her declining as far as her singing ability because of something that happened with the Star Spangled Banner, the basketball game. But that was a fluke, and it had nothing to do with her singing. It had something to do with the technical, I think, the way they protected her voice. But you'll hear her as an amazing singer on our record, and I'm so proud of it. And we made that the last track on the record because after that song, it was hard to follow it with anything. So I'm looking forward to presenting Anita to the world in a new format. It's totally bebop, totally grooving, and she's totally free. So I think people are going to be excited to hear her like that.
Well, and we know
our CDs are always eclectic. They go from one thing to the other. We go from R&B with Ruben to a jazz standard with Anita, and all throughout the record, there's just so many really nice things that I'm sure you heard. I hope you agree.
Yeah, it definitely does take you in different directions, which is cool. So
it's very interesting.
So
I've been listening to the CD a lot in my car, and I haven't listened to any other CD as much except the first record. And it's really interesting. I can listen to the entire CD over and over again and replay, and I really don't do that. So I'm really excited to have people hear it. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd love to give it away to the world because I just want people to hear it and appreciate it. That's why I want people to hear it.
Well, so what's what's in the near future or distant future? Is it just more touring and recording? Anything in particular coming?
Well, last week I played on a Tyler Perry movie with my son, Leona Lewis, a track that he wrote for the movie for colored girls that ever contemplated committing suicide. That's the movie's coming out in November. So I did that. I have a new band called the Chameleon Band, and we just come back from touring, and I'm writing and preparing to record with that. But with Foreplay, we're about to go to Shanghai. Foreplay just came back from playing the Joy of Jazz in South Africa, Johannesburg. We did 2 shows there, which is great, and we're about to go to Shanghai for a one-night show. I'm going to be there a week, just get there a little early and kind of take in the city. I've been there before, but so we're doing that, and once we come back in the States, then we'll begin touring the United States. We've already been to Kansas City. We were there in the summer, and I think Abe was with us, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was
Abe's first show because Nathan is in Downford County. He blew out his Achilles tendon, and it's getting better.
Right.
And Nathan's going to join us when we come back to the United States leg, but he's afraid to go to Shanghai because it's such a long flight.
Mm-hmm.
But we look forward to that, and then we're going to be playing all throughout the United States. We go to Japan in December, and we're playing with the Tokyo Symphony Orchestra. Huh. And after that, we have a library to play with a lot of symphony orchestras, so we'll be playing in combination with symphony orchestras from time to time and spicing it up. We've had orchestrations done on a lot of the Foreplay music, so it's really exciting, and we're looking forward to touring and getting out in front of people and presenting fresh, appealing music.
Well, I know when you brought Abe Laborio with you, I knew I'd gotten hip to him when he was playing with John Clemmer and on other projects, but I had no idea he would jump around and dance as much as he did when his solo came along.
Oh yeah. He's pretty amazing, pretty exciting guy.
Well, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate you taking the time out, and much continued success to you in your career and in the collective career of Foreplay. And ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking with percussionist, composer, producer Harvey Mason. And Mr. Mason, I thank you very much.
All right, thank you for having me, and to all the Kansas City fans, we love you there. You guys are great, and I hope we get to come back and perform some of this new music for you again, and keep going by and keep the music flowing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, buddy.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.